Hello, y'all. My name is Mr. Getz, spelled G-O-E-T-Z. We're here in the TV studio at Manor Senior. I've got two people hanging out here with me. I've got Manor Mayor, Dr. Wallace, and then Mr. Max Whalley, science teacher. And the reason we're kind of sitting here is we wanted to talk kind of about what the mayor does and how teachers can work together with the mayor on different things. So why don't we start off by, the viewers have seen Dr. Wallace a couple times, but the viewers haven't seen Mr. Whalley before. So just real quick, just tell us what you teach, sir.
Yeah.
And
Okay, well, my name is Max Whalley. I teach health science courses such as medical microbiology, forensic science, and anatomy and physiology. And I guess one main reason I feel I want to be here, well, is one, to know Mr. Getz. I love supporting what he does.
Right.
Communication, we were talking about that
Yes,
a minute ago,
yes.
and I just met you, and I get a sense that you're really wanting to start some good initiatives, and
Appreciate it.
kind of in the background on Friday, we met with various people, employers in the community, and that was really exciting to me because they were energetic, excited about, like, they want to hire our graduates.
I forgot about that. So one thing I failed to mention about Mr. Whalley is he's also in career and technical education. He's got his career and technical education shirt, so I'm in that same realm as well. So we could definitely, talk a little bit about
Okay, good, good,
going
good.
towards career.
And you know what's going on as far as
Yes,
in
yes,
the city,
yes.
and how it might connect to our
Okay,
students.
no, definitely, definitely. No, I appreciate you coming out, and you teach all the hard classes.
So that's a good place to be. So there are the hard sciences.
Yeah.
There's the social sciences. There's the humanities. There's a big kind of range, because a lot of what Mr. Whalley would teach then would be kind of fact based, as opposed to opinions or
Right.
editorializing, for sure.
Okay. Definitely. Good classes, good classes. I know they were hard for me, but they're good classes. Great.
So we're working on two videos today. So the first video we wanted to do was talking with a handful of teachers, and I do not need to amplify my own voice. It's kind of me sitting here. I seem kind of foolish. I feel kind of foolish,
Why?
doing it, because I wanted to open up kind of the platform to teachers so we can
Right.
hear other
Right.
folks kind of speaking from this space a little bit. But with it being 2 days before spring break.
Well, I think, and definitely don't feel foolish, because a lot of things that we're trying to do now, when we talk about this collaboration between the school district, the senior high school, and especially this media program, these are some things that have not been done before. And kind of what I've seen, even with trying to start some town halls and other events. We had that resource fair last year. It's trying to get the community to buy into, is this something that's actually going to be beneficial, it's actually going to be providing information. So I see this as, we got to start somewhere, and as people start to see things like these are really going to give them some type of insight, more so than, as we talked about, just the media posts, just the 30-second, 60-second specific targeted media videos. I think more people will start to tune in, more people will start to speak up about things that they really want to know about. So someone's got to start it, and you're doing it.
Absolutely. So from the classroom, Mr. Whalley, we have an initiative that we've spent some time with called Capturing Kids' Hearts, and it's kind of building relationships. So talk a little bit about how you work on and foster relationships in your classroom.
I was just kind of reflecting a little bit today, like, sometimes, well, as I've become more experienced in the last only few years, but I sense, the students come in the room, I sense, like, sometimes, of course, individual students, like, coming in with something, they're carrying, a worry, anxiety, something like that, or it's broader something happened in the city or in the school or among their friends or academically, all those kind of things. And I started, and this is kind of capturing kids' hearts, as far as like, you want to be able to launch them. Like you want them to walk out hopeful about adulthood, about careers. And so anyway, I share stories, right? Like, and I started out more last year kind of consciously about like, I think I need to share a failure story, right?
Right.
You know, because like I just see it, they're feeling like.
Those can go wrong, though, Mr. Webb. Those can go wrong because once I was subbing at Manor Middle School when I was coming up, and I was in a music class, and I talked about, well, when I moved to Austin, the first job I worked with was at HEB, but that really didn't work out. And then I was working at Subway. They kind of offered me a position in the law school, and then I decided not to do that. And I had an 8th grader, could have even been a 6th grader, because it was mixed grades levels that said to me, Mr. Getz, you've failed and quit at a lot of things. And I was like,
But that's the idea, is like, you know, you don't give up.
right.
Yeah.
I have those things, and I can look back on it, and I'm like, man, because of that, like I've got this strength with me, and so, you know, they tend to, like I see it, you know, the room rise up a little bit, you know, so capturing kids' hearts kind of helps that be like in the structure of your class, right? Of whatever you can bring to that for the students. Anyway, that's a little piece I was reflecting on.
No, that's a good.
And sometimes I choose not to do it, you know, we got a lot to cover, that kind of thing. And so it's like there's a lot of time involved with that, but it's essential that we reflect.
No, I think that
stop like this and be like, okay, where are we at, you know?
Yeah, I think that transparency and honesty is very valuable. As one thing I try to do with my classes at Houston-Tillotson when I'm teaching there, whether it's the leadership class or the organizational behavior class, and even when I was down to support Dr. Avery when he was receiving his recognition at the Texas Alliance of Black School Educators.
Which that conference just wrapped, I think, 2 weeks ago or so.
Yeah, it was a couple weeks ago, and it's actually going to be here next year. And I already said Manor's going to be a prominent advocate of supporting that conference next year here in Austin. But one of the things I said there when we went around and said, what is a true leader, or what is a strong man, right? Because it was all men in the room, and one of the things that I felt compelled to stand up and say was, a strong man is someone that can tell people where their failures were. It's someone that can ask for help and tell people that this is an area of weakness. And I think, when we say that, and say when you have this room of superintendents, principals, other leaders, and saying, sometimes we can look and I get told this even from a veteran perspective, sometimes we can look so stoic, so strong, and we mentally take things in and plan through because we can't, because these kids, we think they're so fragile, we can't, show that we also went through trials and tribulations, and the only reason we're here, or the only way we think a certain way, or the only way we strategize or think about what the second and third order effect of things are because of those trials and errors and not asking for help and thinking we could do it on our own. So I definitely agree with you in a sense of sometimes it's the right time and place. The heck with the curriculum, because you're trying to prepare these kids for life. And then other times sometimes you can say a little bit too much.
So Dr. Wallace just said something about kind of focusing on the curriculum. So sitting kind of at the edge of coronavirus, today is Thursday, March 12th, 2020. There's at this point, I think, been 1,300 cases in the U.S. We've maybe had about 70 or 80 deaths, I think. We actually have a microbiologist joining us right now, which is kind of helpful.
Our students right now, as we speak, are predicting how many cases there will be in the U.S. March 23rd when we get back after spring break.
Really?
There's a molecule that's been 3D printed, I know, or there's something that's been 3D printed.
So it's kind of exciting. They know more than me right now. So like Monday before last, I kind of did an example with them on the world, and I said, now you apply that to the U.S.
The curriculum is fixing to flip almost completely online. There was on National Public Radio, I heard a superintendent somewhere in Florida talked about the number of digital devices that they have in that district. And we've got Google Classroom, we've got Google Voice, so we've got some things to use when the curriculum, it's all going to YouTube soon. So maybe Dr. Wallace could be, or roll up here over spring break or something and say, kids, this is what we're, or ladies and gentlemen, this is what we're talking about today. So
Definitely, whatever you need. But no, I mean, it is amazing because I was reading an article just even with some of the Ivy League schools. It was talking about, hey, what's the plan for these students that are not from the country, these students that are underserved, underprivileged, low income, and having to do that. So it's good that you're already thinking about these things. It's good in being proactive, even with us at the city level. When we kind of got the word what was going to happen with South by Southwest, putting together a message just to try to preempt and say, hey, don't get too over emotional and reactive to the cancellation of South by Southwest. There's, certain precautions just in place in almost kind of business as normal, but still just be precautionary because of the way it's spreading. Not necessarily that, it's a significant type of an illness where you die, but more or less that, hey, you're going to have to clean your hands a lot more. You're going to have to do more of the sanitary actions that you may not be accustomed to doing. So, yeah.
As an anatomy and physiologist, would you agree, sir?
Yes, sir.
Would you add anything?
No, I mean, that's fine. That's good. That's right.
I read up good. I read up well. Proper English.
I was having a conversation with a couple students. One of them in the friend circle had a pretty rough time. So he wasn't at school for about a month. So I was talking to two of his friends, and it's kind of tough for a teacher to, obviously because of FERPA and HIPAA, I mean, there are laws that we don't discuss student cases with other students or with folks who don't have an academic interest in, that student. I was talking to him, and these words came out of my mouth, and I immediately corrected myself. And what I said was, we have to, as much as we can, support each other within this community here, because it's tough out there. So if there's folks outside of this building, if there's situations you're involved in, and outside of this building, those things may tear you down. So in here, we need to do what we can to build each other up for when we're out there. And then I corrected myself, because for our students, it's tough in here too. So I said it's tough out there because as a teacher, we don't, would you agree that when we're in this environment here at school, do you see it as being something that's like tough?
We're social creatures. Like, our brains can't turn social off, right? And so everything that happens affects us like deeply, well below our thinking.
Right.
We just did an experiment. I had students in anatomy stare into each other's eyes for a full minute.
No way.
And to pay attention to their physiology.
Wow.
And what happens is, like, you realize your brain makes you do all kinds of stuff in response that you're not even controlling to a simple social dynamic as that.
Right.
So if that's just staring, imagine like words. And so they weren't supposed to talk or anything, but we had students like tear it up.
Right.
I'm going to take that and use that. I'm going to use that.
Laughing uncontrollably, and hearts rates increased, and then calm and got really relaxed. All kinds of varieties, and it just kind of it's evidence of even more dynamic social activities within their academic experiences, and their brains are reacting to that and multiplying by everybody.
Right.
What I I think what you're saying is true, and I don't often think about it. We experience different dynamics, I think, as teachers.
Yeah,
We
because
have
there's
some
not
more space.
as much, right? So there are some different spaces that we're kind of in, and the risk taking, I think, for teachers is a little bit different than it is for students, because when students come in our doors, they're here. I mean, they're here. They're doing the best they can. But but for my reaction, I mean, just to say it's tough out there, and just to one of them, the two young ladies I was talking to, if one of them would have said, "Mr. Getz, it's tough in here too, or it's tough everywhere," that's the construct that I'm trying to.
Yeah. I think, when you say that kind of reminds me a lot about my military career and how you're supposed to take care of the people that you oversee and how that's drastically different kind of in the non-military. It's almost the same in the police department, the fire department, those specialty type of organizations where you really have to rely on the other person, and you can't and you don't want their minds to be somewhere else when you need them focused on the job, right? And I've seen that just even in the different type of organizations I've been involved with, where it's kind of, you're here, this is what you need to do, I don't care about what's going on anywhere else. Or, well, that's another, or even when that's another teacher, that this is my standard, this is what I have going on, or, versus kind of saying, all right, what's going on outside these four walls is having an impact in these four walls, kind of like what you're talking about. And if I don't show any type of empathy, right, and try to figure out where I can have sympathy, right, then I'm not building that relationship or that rapport for that student to tell me what's going on, so then I can potentially be a resource more than just an educator. I can also be able to say, okay, you got these things going on. I know someone over here that could probably help out with this or that and connect. So you can really, one of the best things that I like about Michael Lofton, who's the founder and president of the African American Youth Harvest Foundation, it's right down to 90, is he makes sure there's peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and drinks and all that stuff there for those kids that are low income that are coming to his facility to do any type of classes, training, additional assistance, or whatever. Because he's adamant, he's saying if they're hungry, their mind is elsewhere, and they may be hungry just for the fact of they don't have that necessity at home, but nobody's asking what is causing your thought process, what is causing your attention to be elsewhere than where it needs to be right now. So I definitely get what you're saying, and when you're talking about within a high school, middle school, elementary, you have the larger community, which you're saying the city of Manor, you have this other community, which is the school district, and then you have this other community, which is the actual school, and then you have this other community, which is the actual classroom.
These kind of
right? Right? So you could be, everything's good at the school, but my classroom doesn't like me, so that makes me anxious to not want to go to the class, and so that's why I don't go to that class, but you see, I'm going to all the other classes.
It could be a teacher saying those words, or it could be a student saying those words. Because a student could say something about a particular class or something like that, or a teacher could say something about a specific class period kind of thing.
Well, and you bring out, I love what you were saying about like your experience in the military and you recognizing kind of similarities in other kind of work communities, fire department, police, and it strikes me that, well, I think you understand those dynamics and like you care about your buddies at like a level when you're in that context, and I sense like you want the whole community to kind of have that level of care on that level, like the person you mentioned, Lofton, and like how do you see that happening beyond like those individual cases like him, like on, like I guess in your vision, like the whole city as a whole, what kind of with employers and so and businesses.
It boils down to me, it's like almost three things, and maybe two when I say this. One is communication. right? 90% of almost anything is communication, making sure we're on the same page. In the military, we call it tracking, right? I'm tracking, just like, you're on a boat tracking fish or tracking a plane, right? I'm right on the same page as you are. And then with that communication is transparency and as much honesty as possible.
And you jumped to that pretty quick with our students. So the first time we had Dr. Wallace here, I think there was maybe, 15, 20 minutes in, he kind of, came back a little bit and was like, yeah, we're doing this is happening. Okay, so then he talked about transparency, and then he continued what he was saying. So I think that's an example of what you're saying, you doing that.
You're never gonna like everything that is going on. But if you at least know why things are not going that way through the communication, you understand the decisions behind it and stuff, right? You at least have confidence in the person whether or not you like them or not. In this position, in any leadership position, it should never be I'm making decisions because I want to be liked. I'm making decisions because it's in the best interest. And so with that, it becomes now my focus to make sure everybody understands why it's this decision, being very transparent about it, right? And as honest as possible, because there's going to be some certain agreements or some certain things that you can't give full disclosure. So as honest as possible. No, you as a teacher don't tell your students everything, especially why this test versus that test, because maybe you slept late, maybe you had something going on, so you modified the class. You're not going to tell them that. So as honest as possible, so when you do make decisions, you do things, you're like, all right, the last 4 or 5 decisions have been very thought out, have been very well planned. There was some decision making, it wasn't a knee jerk. So even though I don't like this one, I know what type of person he is. I know what type of person she is. I may not, and you know this, I may not like the person, but when they say something, I could trust what they're saying, right? And that's what it really boils down to. And what I've seen is people corral around that because they know who they're dealing with. They know that when the ship is trying to be steered this way, they know I can get on board with it. I may not like the person that's steering it, but I can get on board with at least the vision and the mission. So I think I'm trying to do that more if you're talking about the strategic level. That's what I'm trying to do.
Well, I can identify that with my smaller community. I feel like things do work better. It's not perfect when you share why you were doing it this way. It's better.
Right.
Not everyone's happy, but
Right.
At least that's better.
Right.
That's the way we want to have that integrity in our
Right.
communities. And I can, even the other way, I can appreciate when I have a student that's like what you're saying, that they're like, Mr. Whalley, I don't like this, but this is why I'm doing it my way. This is how I'm giving you my word. And I can respect that.
Right.
Because, hey, that's better for our community as a whole. This is a good attitude in here. So.
Right.
The job description. There are job descriptions for teachers. And the thing that we have is attendance. We got grades. And then I put in a little bit of, because mainly maybe it comes from being in career and technical education, is being a job reference or writing letters of recommendation. So there's those, pretty much that's what the job title is. And then it is the responsibility of the teacher, how they, A, do their job,
Right.
and then maybe B, kind of look at what their role and how they spend time.
Right.
Because there's really nothing that says that a teacher can walk out their door, walk down to another room, and talk with a teacher about working on something or helping them with something. There's nothing that says that has to happen at all. So it's left to the teachers to kind of decide what the culture and communication is among teachers.
Right.
That's what we have in front of us. And I think that this is a good platform
Well,
for
and we hear it from you. That's valuable.
Yes.
That's worth
yes.
something.
Even with my classes at Houston-Tillotson, right, that when I'm teaching them and I'm kind of non-conventional in how I'm doing the classes. I'm bringing in speakers from the community to, especially organizational behavior, I'm bringing speakers in to from different industries to speak about how they're making decisions, how they're analyzing and all that stuff. So these kids or these students, these juniors and seniors can be able to see it's all about decision-making process, it's all about building relationships, it's all about all those things, leading in managerial aspects of it. And it's similar. It doesn't matter what industry, it doesn't matter what your background was, it doesn't matter where you're coming from, it doesn't matter, your education, all that. There's certain key principles that will make you successful or will make you progress. And I say that in a sense where when it comes down to the testing and stuff, I'm not so big on the grammar and the punctuation and I know some other people are, right? Sticklers on that. I'm not so much of a stickler as starting a sentence with this, 3 times in a row. I mean, I highlight it.
Sure.
I'm more testing because what I find valuable is we all can memorize and forget, but am I really transforming the individual to be more successful? And it becomes more critical and crucial the more low income, underserved, underrepresented that population is, that they have the analytical, the critical, the decision-making process, they have the rapport building, right? And then that they have the exposure to different opportunities so they can be able to engage from an area of similarity, commonality, right? More so than being able to say, how many people got their job because they had a 4.0? How many if someone came to you for a job and you had one person that had a 4.0, didn't do anything, you had another person that had a 3.0 and was involved in multiple different organizations, could tell you that they put together car washes, put together parties, did presentations, and yada, 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 which one are you gonna pick? This one brings more value added that I don't have to pay for day one. They have a certain level of engaging, working with volunteers that can come and go as they please, versus the person that went to school to do what they were supposed to do, which was graduate. And so for me, it's one of those things of just learning in life, and you all know this too, is sometimes, especially at the school district level, it's easy to get caught up into the whole testing and the stars and all that other stuff versus what's going to happen when they graduate here and they go to the 2-year or the 4-year or they go to college and they're being tested on their mental faculties.
I have a student a junior, last week, decided to not take the SAT and said, if you do not take the SAT, I'm not talking to you until April 1st. We've already been communicating through the window without papers, seen him in the hallway a couple times. He is my student, and I hope on April 1st we'll speak again.
Right.
But it was kind of, I enjoy speaking with him, he enjoys speaking
Right,
with me.
right.
And I was kind of like, consequence. So there were several different individuals attempting to encourage him to sit for the test. And I set that one down. But it's the SAT, it's an opportunity, it's one thing. But then when there's a question in the SAT about putting the saucer in the cupboard, oh, well, we had plates and we had a cabinet. So there's an English passage that says the saucer in the cupboard, and those weren't words that are used. So there's biases in testing lots of times hindrances, barriers. But that tough love has to happen too, especially when you're on the other end, right? And I get the whole piece of the stars and all that stuff, but at the same time, I bombed my ACT, SAT, GMAT, and all that stuff, right? But again, those are certain barriers to a wealth of opportunities, right? And I think it's balancing that out, right? And being able to say, all right, I know there's certain things, STAR testing, that's going to be able to keep the school at a certain grade level. It's going to keep the district at a certain grade level. It's going to enable or bring opportunity. Right, it's that checks and balances. It's just when it becomes unbalanced, when it's more of one thing than making sure you see that holistic piece of the person you're developing, right? I mean, even when I was a drill sergeant, I did the same thing. I had a platoon of 60, and they were just acting bad. And so me and my 2 drill sergeant battle buddies,
we said, you know what? We're just gonna stop talking to them. And we'd come in the room, they say, at ease. We just walk to the back room, close the door. We'd come out, they say, at ease. We just walk down the hallway, and we say, see you downstairs. And then they'd be in the hall. And so after maybe about a week, they started doing everything on their own, trying to get us to talk back to them again. And so sometimes you have to do that tough love, but it's, to me, it's more in a strategic perspective of when and why you're doing the tough love, because you see you need them to do this or accomplish this because it's going to be a hindrance in possibilities of their future.
It's that seeing that onion skin, seeing like outside the
Yeah,
building,
yeah,
and then
yeah, definitely.
The goal isn't to punish. The goal is strategic, like you said. It's about it's in the context of a relationship.
Exactly.
Like, we're not giving up on each other. We do care.
we could be all working remotely.
why-
I mean,
Yeah.
that could be district
Yeah.
mandated that we're not talking to each other. So there's probably going to be a bell that's going to ring sometime soon here. I'm not sure. Thanks to Avion and Jermaine for holding things down in
Appreciate
the
it.
control room for us. Any closing words, Mr. Mayor?
You know, I would say this, almost every assignment I had in the military, even some on nonprofits where I was a board member, there's been almost, I'll probably say, especially in the military, probably 75% of them hated me when I was there. But now, they're off doing great things, and a lot of them say it's because of the trials I put them through, because of the things I was trying to teach them and instill them to be prepared for after me with other people that may not be so forgiving or so developmental or so trying to make sure they learned it now before they got to that position and that rank where it was expected.
Nobody told me.
So I think as leaders, we always got to think about that and say, all right, how are we actually developing the person? How are we being very strategic in our approach? So it's transforming them in 2 or 3 different ways than just the one. You know, that would probably be my kind of recommendation there.
Closing thoughts, Mr. Whalen?
Thank you for the inspiring words.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you for coming.